Welcome to my show. It's a guest here. Her name is Kelsey Smith. Mrs. Kelsey, how are you doing, ma?
I am well, and I'm grateful to be here with you.
All right. Thank you so much for the time, the patience, and also the opportunity, Mrs. Kelsey. Firstly, you are an author. You are also in intramural cartography, and you are also into yoga. Can you please, Mrs. Kelsey, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Kelsey?
More about myself. If I'm honest, right now in the phase of life I'm in, I'm very just sick of myself, sick of all of the focus and emphasis being on myself. But that being said, um, I work in a small town as a personal trainer right now. I'm very devoted to the craft of writing. So every morning I take a good hour, 2 hours to write something, uh, which is a bit of a sanity practice for me too, but also just intramural cartography to me is like a map making of the internal world. So the unseen realm, what some people call the psyche, um, and it's a practice. It's a dedication. So yeah, that takes a lot of my life, and that's about all I have to say about myself.
Honestly speaking, I also understand what you're saying, Mrs. Kelsey. It is not easy, most especially in the world we find ourselves today. Being personal and also trying is our best to do a lot of things to make sure that things work out well is 100% not easy as a person. And also, that is why I would like to dive to your book, Mrs. Kelsey, Making Madness. Can you please, Mrs. Kelsey, discuss more on that book? And do you also have more books you are planning to write in the coming future, Mrs. Kelsey?
Okay, so first to say a little bit about Making Madness. So it's kind of like a memoir style self-help book, but it's very antithetical to typical self-help books in the sense that I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do. I'm not insinuating or suggesting that I have all the answers. I'm just sort of, again, creating this course or this path that worked for me to meander through, yeah, a bunch of the adversities that conjured in my path, such as I had psychosis when I was 13, or madness, insanity, um, and addiction issues, and just I'm a very edge case type of person where I just if somebody takes something to the limit, I'm going to go 5 feet further. So I've historically been a very I use the term extremist type of personality, and yeah, this book is sort of me taking to the extreme the processing of all the processes that made me that way, if that makes sense, to try and come back to the middle, if that makes sense, come back to a more homeostasis type of being.
I'm so glad that you wrote this book, honestly speaking, because people like you are the ones that are meant to write books. And people like you that have experienced a lot of personality, probably from the childhood, from the teenage life, and also from the youth life. The experience that have been brought from those perspective and personality that have been brought into the book will be something that will be valuable for people to be impacted and also learn a lot from you and also know where they could also put themselves in some shoes. And that is why I also like to dive to the area of pain. Because one of the things that cause a lot of issues when it comes to having a life of anxiety or having a life that is really not pleasing to one is pain. And that is why I would like to dive to that point, Mrs. Kelsey, bypassing pain. What do you think is the danger of bypassing pain with positive thinking? And how do you think people can also recognize when they are doing it, Mrs. Kelsey?
Pain. So I think first and foremost, I think we live in our current paradigm really asserts that, pain is bad. That's where we got to start. And I think pain is a very pertinent alarm system that has been programmed and encoded into our being that we have become so detached from and desensitized from because of this split that has tended to exist in between our mind and our bodies. And I think culturally, at least speaking of, the dominant Western culture, we've developed this ignorance to the intelligence that abides in our body. And I think straying away from pain cues or discomfort or dis-ease that arises in the body, and just looking for, as soon as that arises, how do we evade the pain, how do we assuage it and get back to comfort. And I just personally, in my own experience, kind of putting a chair at the table of beingness for pain, it might be a worthwhile endeavor, because I think being in a human body, part and parcel of this life is pain, is hurting, is suffering. And I think pain, if we welcome it into our zeitgeist, can be such a profound teacher. And so, yeah, that's what I would say about that.
What you said, Mrs. Kelsey, is 100% beautiful. And that is what every single one of us needs to understand. Pain is a natural thing that we are being brought into this world to. Pain is something we will always encounter in life. But how we try our best to deal with that pain is what will make us much stronger as humans. If we have pains, our that pain should be a way for us to learn, grow, and also get some insight that will also help us to become a better person. We shouldn't look for ways, that is what is happening in our time currently, which is not right, to ease it or to use a lot of things to just make it calm. We should navigate, see the issue regarding that pain, and know how we could heal ourselves and develop ourselves from those pain so that when it comes again, it won't hurt the way it has hurt the earlier time one has had those pain. So it is very, very important to want to know this type of things. It's very, very necessary. Thank you so much for that insight, Mrs. Kelsey. And also, though some people, I have to be honest with you, Mrs. Kelsey, are now silenced, even ashamed to even get to a point whereby they could bring out their internal struggles, as you said, from your earlier time, from your personal struggles. So, for those who probably felt silenced or ashamed, what do you think from your experience is the first step in giving the shape to their internal struggles, Mrs. Kelsey?
Okay, so for this, I would first start off with shame can beget its own shame cycle. So I think, again, allowing shame to be part of the processing is a fundamental starting point, because as soon as we become shameful of the shame, and then it just spirals from there. So I think that's something I would start with. And I think it's more of an unburdening process of removing the distortions that are keeping you muffled or muted. And I think first, you do have to sort of do that process within. Um, and I think too, like when we're thinking of giving shape to something, I think, as you so eloquently put, this idea of this polished form, I think doing away with that sort of figure in our minds as the ideal, and allowing them to there to be punctures and perforations in that form. And this is something I've been sitting with currently, just in my own musings, is allowing there to be holes, allow there to be cracks, allowing there to be breaks, and being okay with that. And also, right now, a story is coming to mind. I worked for this lady, and years ago, in her, like when I was first kind of in the earlier stages of probably my second edit of the book I just wrote, Making Madness, and her husband was in the addiction and mental health world, like pretty high position. And I remember her telling her about this book, and she said basically, if you ever want to be respected in this world, basically you should not tell your story. And that most it of course, like to be completely honest, like it sways you a bit, like you start wavering in your resolve to open up so rawly about material that is said to be. And that took a lot to sort of traverse beyond
Yeah.
somebody trying to shut down my voice, because I think, like as we've been speaking about, it's more comfortable to keep the holes and the breaks hidden away and present this polished, perfected surface, even if it's inaccurate.
Sure. I 100% totally understand what you're saying because, from the experience you've had, also from that first story, it shows that, sometimes when we have this pain, when we have this issue, we should know how we could help ourselves to make things work so that we will not feel ashamed or silenced because it was when while we are silenced, even from what you said, that when someone see the personal stories, it shows that person is, all those kind of things. Silence is another type of, it's like another type of prison on its own. And also someone
Mm.
feeling ashamed is another type of issue on its own. But we have to try our best to develop it. We have to try our best to make the body we've had more stronger in those type of circumstances and issues. I
Mm.
think that is going to make us to be more better and also live a life that is more fulfilled. Also, I would like to dive to the point of small practices and also mind shift from your experience after deep disappointment. As we said, a lot of people we will all face pain, whether we like it or not. Pain is natural, it will come. Also, disappointment. People who feel disappointment with probably maybe in a relationship or anything that they find themselves, they're really disappointed in it. So, what do you think are some of the small practices or also mindset shift that will help them reclaim hope after this deep disappointment, Mrs. Kelsey?
Okay, to start addressing that question, I would start with the word hope. And this is something I've grappled back and forth with over a bit of time. And the reason I don't pedal in hope is because hope is a future event. And I think part of our poverty of the current times is living elsewhere, is uprooting, however, like allowing our mind to us either, to future tomorrows or yesterdays that draw us from the place we're meant to be. Like right now I'm meant to be right here. If my mind's pulling me to 8 days from now, it's yeah, it distorts sort of. And I mean, that moment doesn't even exist. So I think that's like a good place to start. Is I'm not sure that I love hope. And that can sound sort of despairing. I do understand that. But I think being real and honest and dropping away with something that might be a bit delusory, at least from my perspective, is a good starting point. And I, even just as I kind of have been saying about making a seat at the table for these things, disappointment is like pain. It's a part of life. And I think, I know for me, I've experienced many endings in my life, even in current years, post like post where Making Madness concludes. In the last 3 years of my life, endings that have just been brutal. And I
Mm.
think this fairy tale happy ending narrative sets us up for a hazy vision of reality that, I'm a very eyes wide person. If the harshest reality is in front of me, I can't shut my eyes to it anymore. Like I've lost the ability to look away or to delude myself. Or So I think that's a good starting point. I think disappointment, I think it's good to be disappointed, and I think a lot of disappointment is in holding and clinging too tightly to this idea that life should go the way we think it should go, right? As opposed to how it is. And if I look outside, the grass is green and everything's flourishing, and there are no ecological issues. It's like, but something else is there. I'm not doing myself a favor by ascribing the world a facade that it doesn't need to wear.
Yeah, I completely understand what you are saying, and I also agree with you in the insight. We need to have something we call hope. We need to have something we call encouraging ourselves, no matter the ups and downs we find in life. Disappointment is something that might come, and when it's come, we have to have this belief that with hope and with more motivation and with more grace, we will be able to get to the point whereby we'll be feel appreciated again and feel more stronger to do a lot of things in life. And that is what we have to have in our mindset. As you also said, hope is one of the main points we need to also understand. When we have hope, I think a lot of things will flow. Probably no matter how the disappointment is or no matter how the pain is, we'll know how to navigate and also know how to build things and also make it in a better way to help every single one of us. And also, I would like to also dive to the point of protecting ourselves in the world that we find ourselves. If we are a person whereby we'll release and we release, that is where maybe pain, disappointment comes. Because when we release ourselves and have this kind of kindness, everything, we tend to realize that some terrible things happens to us, things that we should not have had if we are in a way that we actually protect ourselves in some certain ways or actually be more careful in some areas. So, how do you think we can protect ourselves emotionally while still remaining open and honest about what hurts, Mrs. Kelsey?
This is a good question. And I'll be honest and say that I feel like I've fully metabolized a worthwhile answer, but I'm going to speak to it and see what comes. There's this saying that comes to mind when you ask this question about how God or life or whatever happening beyond ourselves that presents the current reality, that says it only gives you what you can handle. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we turn away from the moment or the emotions of the moment, or numb out, or seek escape tactics to deflect from the emotion uprising here and now. And yeah, I think there's a moving through that has to be done, because in order to dissipate the intensity of that emotion and not lodge it in our being, to some degree we have to turn and face it. And I think the reason that the protection and this caution around that is, sometimes you have to let the storm just hit in its full aggression, and you just kind of have to cling to the driftwood that's see your way through it. At least in my experience, I still go through moments where this darkness out of nowhere, and you just have to do your best to pass, and it will pass, right? Like emotions are like weather systems. I think the reason we get stunted in this moving through process I'm talking about is because we try to run away. We try to, again, it's like this evasion of the pain. And yeah, and I think it's like that analogy of under the rug. If you sweep the crumbs out as they fall, your rug isn't going to lift 12 feet in the
Mhm.
air. But if ignoring or looking away from those actions as they make themselves manifest to you, and don't let the storm do its storms in nature. Like, what is a storm in nature? I love using nature as like my greatest teacher. It's a cleanse the the ecosystem. And so if we stall out that process, it's we're only doing ourselves a disservice. But yeah, in terms of like the protection and the caution, I think just trusting that life is giving you what you can handle, and yeah, moving through it as opposed to running. It is ironically and counterintuitively, I think, how we protect ourselves from being drowned or capsizing in a tempest that we can't handle once all that energy is left inside us unprocessed.
That shows that nature is very, very powerful. And that is one of our big issues in our time currently. People are not connected to nature and they give all these emotions out. And when they give it out that way, stuff starts to happen. Disappointment, pain, a lot of things start to happen. Now, the point, they will get to a point whereby they want to try to heal it, they want to try to make themselves better through those pain. Nature is one of the most powerful instrument we can have as humans. If we connect ourselves to the nature and not things we see around us, there is something we will have in us. And I don't know if you also have it. There will be this kind of calmness, and there will be this kind of seeing the right path. No matter what comes, we will know how to check, know how to protect ourselves, and see if it's something we could put our hands into. And if we could try our best to continue that way, connecting with nature and trying our best to see how we could use it physically, probably through the social media we are doing or through every single thing we are putting in. And I think things start to come out naturally, not being
Mm.
forced, but coming out naturally. Because whether I would like it or not, this world that we are is full of force that we cannot see. It's full of natures that we are having around us. And we have to know how to connect with it to see how we can use it to implement a lot of things. We do know the social media and everything that we have are not really something that is connected to nature. We have to connect to nature to make it work for us so it could bring something for us naturally. So I honestly thank you for that because we have to know how to see those things so that we can know how to protect ourselves and see how we could make things better for us so we won't have this kind of pain that we cannot be able to heal and do something that we are not meant to do. So thank you so much. I would like to go back to your book, Making Madness, Mrs. Kelsey. If people are also listening currently and they want to begin their healing journey, what do you think is one truth from your book, Making Madness, that you need them to hear to also make them to be more better, Mrs. Kelsey?
Well, I think what the book does really well is it dawns my vulnerabilities. I mean, the way that I described it, it's like my guts on a platter. So it's, as to continue with the words we've been using, it's raw, it's blatant, it's frank, it's honest, it's eyes wide seeing of, you know, my course up until a certain point. And I think just I keep going back to this wearing the
Mm.
holes, you know. I think we do a disservice, especially as you sort of brought up with the social media, where everything is so polished and put together and, you know, without any sort of abrasiveness on the outside. Like that's not real, you know. And I think part of, I mean, even you look at the word wholeness, and this is again just a current musing, so it's maybe not completely well thought out, but we'll see what emerges. And so yeah, the word wholeness has the word whole in it. And I think we're just, as a culture, we're just so keen on stuffing those holes with superficial filler, whether that's, you know, booze or drugs or just hyper consumerism or just something where you're just detached, you're escaping. And if we could just allow those holes to be there as part of the wholeness, those cracks, those breaks, I think that's one of the greatest acts of service that we can do for our times. Because, you know, you go online and you see this feed, this perfectly curated feed that makes it appear as if people's lives have no holes, and yet we're consumed by them. We're
Mm.
really consumed by holes that we're just desperate to fill. So if somebody takes anything from the book, or even just
Mm.
what I'm trying to say is to wear your holes, and to allow those, yeah, those punctures and those perforations and the shattered pieces to be part of your wholeness. And yeah, hold a space in your beingness for what's broken.
Completely. And that goes back to kindness, humility,
Mm.
community. Those things are what we are lacking in our time today. When we see those filtered things, those holes that we see in social media, as we said, every single person in life have what they are passing through. No matter how big it is, no matter how small it is, no matter how large it is, every single person in life have what they are going through. And that is why we need to be kind to each other. We have to
Mm.
go back to the sense of community. It is important in our time, most especially this our time. Suicide is like unimaginable. We need something that will heal us. And I'm very happy that bringing a book like this from an experience to bring this sense of healing, to make people understand how they could navigate themselves, to heal themselves, is something that I'm so glad that is even coming in so people can be impacted in one way or the other. There is a question I normally ask during the end of the show from our forefathers, from our ancestors. There are a lot of things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Kelsey, what do you think that thing would be, Mrs. Kelsey?
Okay, I'm just going to go with the first thing that's coming to mind. And it kind of stirred my guts a bit. So that to me means, I'm just pointing out a bodily sensation here, because that to me means that it has some potency. It has some grips, if you will. But I think it's this reverence and this honoring of particularly soil and dirt. And this is something coming from someone named Stephen Jenkinson, who I listen to quite frequently in the current days. But
Mm.
it's really an illumination that rings true to me. Like I spend at least an hour a day in nature without headphones, without barriers, without perfume on my body, without, without any sort of pretense. And I go out into this living force, this living source. Like
Mm.
it's an animate being, it's an intelligence. And you speak about ancestors, what bears what bears the weight of my body, what bears the weight of my being? It's the soil, it's the dirt, it's the ground beneath me that lays all of this death, all of this, yeah, all of this death that allows my life to traipse and to traverse this this world. And I think just, yeah, we're so disconnected. I mean, some people might even be like, wow, this is like far fetched, but
Yeah.
it's so accessible. Like it's so right outside of your door, dirt, soil, the ground. And I have the deepest reverence for that because, yeah, as I'm saying, like that is a composite of all the deaths that came before me, whether it's the leaves from the trees, whether it's an animal that died there,
Mm.
whether it is, maybe there are bodies to some degree, mixed into that matter. And it's a very holy, sacred space to me. And I think becoming more sensually aware of the blessing that is,
Yeah.
that's such a seemingly taken for granted and simple thing as soil or dirt is. I think that, yeah, that's what came through. And
Mm.
yeah,
Um,
it's an everyday practice of just the gratitude for, even just the food I eat comes from the ground. Just it's such an overlooked but fundamental um, foundation of our life.
I'm so much glad that you are doing a lot to connect with nature, spending time with the grass, with the winds, and every single one of it. It's so beautiful. It helps the body and it helps every single body to make it more stronger and see things in the right way. So I'm so glad it's definitely happening. And also are also encouraged to try their best to see how nature can also help them in many things. It is very beautiful, and we could definitely see how tremendously important it could help us no matter what we are doing in life. I also want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time and the opportunity you've given to me today. Thank you so much, Mrs. Kelsey.
And thank you. I'm so grateful that you asked me for this.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Kelsey. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.